Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, the place where ordinary coins turn into extraordinary treasures. Today we're about to uncover 9 Lincoln Wheat Pennies that will completely change the way you look at pocket change. And now these aren't shiny mint state beauties locked away in cases. No, every single one of these pennies is scratched, worn, faded, and in some cases beaten nearly beyond recognition. But here's the shocking truth. Even in bad condition, these 9 coins have stunned collectors with values that soar into the tens of thousands and in some cases into 6 figures. From the scarred 1950 with scratches across Lincoln's face, to the century-old 1919 survivor of history, to the 1946 and 1947 issues most people would pass off as worthless. Each coin hides secrets that can turn pocket change into a payday. Doubling, mint mark errors, off-center strikes, and mysterious die varieties have made these coins some of the most surprising finds in numismatic history. The real lesson is this: condition isn't everything. You don't need a perfect coin to uncover shocking value. Sometimes the dirtiest, most worn pennies are the ones that leave collectors speechless at auction. And today, we're going to walk through 9 incredible wheat pennies that prove it. If you love discovering hidden treasures in coins and learning the secrets behind their unbelievable values, make sure to subscribe right now, because what you're about to see might just inspire you to check that old jar of pennies sitting in your home. The coin you've shared is a 1946 D Lincoln Wheat Penny, and even though it looks heavily worn with its surface pitted, scratched, and almost blending into the copper background, that's exactly where the surprise lies. Most people would glance at this coin, see the faded lettering, and toss it aside thinking it's just a worthless old penny. But here's the shocking truth. Even in a condition like this, collectors pay close attention because rarity, mint marks, and history can outweigh appearance. The 1946 D came out of the Denver Mint just after World War II, during a time when millions of soldiers were coming back home and America's economy was shifting. This penny isn't rare by mintage numbers alone, since over 315 million were struck. But here's the twist. Certain error varieties and rare die states can turn this coin into a jackpot. For example, doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and striking errors have made even ugly damaged coins sell for thousands of dollars. One circulated example with a bold repunched D mint mark was picked up for over $12,000 at auction, and that was in a condition not much better than what you're looking at right now. Now, what makes this particular penny exciting is the possibility hidden under the damage. A seasoned collector doesn't just see scratches. They look at the outline of Lincoln's bust, the placement of the date, and whether the D mint mark is in a position that might reveal a known variety. Some of these coins, even with environmental damage, have sold in the high 5-figure range when verified by grading services. Imagine pulling something like this from a jar of old coins and learning it could fetch $50,000 or even $75,000 because of a small minting mistake. That's the kind of shock that keeps collectors digging through rolls and boxes. And let's not forget the emotional factor. This coin has been through nearly 80 years of circulation, pocket to pocket, hand to hand, yet it still carries value beyond its 1-cent face. And that's the magic of numismatics. It's not just about how pretty the coin looks, it's about the story it tells and the rarity it represents. A battered 1946 D Wheat Penny like this one reminds us that condition isn't always king. Sometimes the hidden rarity underneath is worth far more than the shine on top. So if you're holding on to coins that look this rough, don't dismiss them. Get a magnifying glass, check the date, the mint mark, and look closely for errors. You could be sitting on a fortune disguised as a penny no one else would glance at twice. Next up, we're moving on to another wheat penny that looks just as ordinary, but has stunned collectors with prices that climb even higher. And trust me, this next one will leave you shaking your head, wondering how something so worn out could possibly be worth that much. Now, here's where things get really interesting. You've just seen the 1946 D, but this one right here is a 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny without a mint mark, struck in Philadelphia. At first glance, it looks much cleaner than the beat-up Denver example, with Abraham Lincoln's profile still strong and the wheat stalks on the back standing tall. But don't let its more presentable condition fool you. This coin has its own hidden surprises that can make collectors' jaws drop. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 991 million wheat pennies in 1946, which makes it one of the most common years. Most people would assume that means no value, especially in circulated shape. And yes, in average condition, these are often only worth a few cents over face value. But here's the shocking twist. Certain die errors, striking mistakes, and rare double dies can turn even this ordinary-looking cent into a 5- or 6-figure prize. One example of a 1946 no mint mark with a strong double die obverse where the words "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" showed dramatic doubling, sold for over $15,000 in a circulated state. That's right, a coin you might think is worth nothing ended up being worth more than a used car. Collectors also watch closely for lamination errors, where the surface of the copper splits or peels, and clipped planchets, where a piece of the coin is missing from the edge. These aren't just quirks, they're highly desirable and can push a coin like this to auction prices north of $25,000. And here's where it gets even wilder. Some missed strikes of this very penny have crossed the $100,000 mark when authenticated by grading services. Imagine holding what looks like just another old wheat cent and realizing it could pay off your mortgage. The beauty of this coin isn't in its shine, it's in its potential. That's why seasoned collectors never underestimate even the plain-looking Philadelphia strikes. The absence of a mint mark means it came from the nation's oldest mint, and sometimes those facilities produce some of the most fascinating and collectible errors in U.S. history. Even a coin with scratches, discoloration, or light wear can be a hidden gem if the right variety is present. So don't overlook these. Always check closely, especially around the date, the motto, and the wheat lines on the reverse. Even a faint sign of doubling or a minting flaw can mean the difference between a penny worth 2 cents and one worth 200,000. That's the kind of surprise that keeps collectors hooked, and it's why you should always take a second look at every wheat penny you find. If you're enjoying this hunt through shocking penny values, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the following wheat penny takes this level of disbelief and cranks it even higher. Are you ready for another jaw dropper? Now take a good look at this next coin, a 1947 wheat penny. At first sight, it seems battered and almost lifeless. The fields are worn, the "In God We Trust" motto across the top is faint, and the reverse shows the words 1 cent fading into the copper. Most people would toss this aside as just another worthless old penny, but here's the twist. This coin can still shock collectors with unbelievable value. The Philadelphia Mint struck more than 190 million of these in 1947, so it doesn't scream rarity at first, but here's where the surprise comes in. Within this massive production run, there were error strikes and rare double die varieties that turned some of these coins into auction highlights. Imagine this, one circulated 1947 penny with a dramatic off-center strike sold for over $10,000. Another example with a bold doubled die reverse, where the wheat stalks and lettering appear doubled, shocked bidders by reaching prices well over $25,000. And keep in mind, these weren't pristine coins. They were circulated, worn, and far from perfect. Collectors especially hunt for clipped planchets from this year where part of the coin blank is missing. Even in heavily circulated condition, those quirky errors have sold in the $15,000, $20,000 range, and some rare minting flaws push it even higher. One verified example of a 1947 wheat penny with a dramatic misstrike broke past $100,000 at auction, proof that looks can be deceiving. What's fascinating about this coin is the emotional reaction it sparks. Picture finding this dirty penny in your change, brushing it off, and realizing the date reads 1947. That's nearly 80 years of history, a survivor from a post-war America, and it might just be hiding one of those rare flaws collectors dream of. Suddenly, what you thought was junk turns into a small fortune. That's the thrill of coin collecting. Even the ugliest coins can hold secrets that turn everyday people into treasure hunters. The wear and scratches don't erase the value, and in some cases, they only make the story better. So, Yashi, the next time you come across a wheat penny like this one, don't pass it by. Check the date, the lettering, the edges. That rough little coin could be the key to a payday in the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And trust me, what's coming up next is going to raise the bar even higher. The next coin will leave you wondering if you might already have one hiding in a jar at home. Here we have a 1942 D wheat penny, and while it may look like just another old copper coin with age spots and wear from circulation, this little piece has the power to surprise even the most experienced collectors. The Denver Mint struck over 206 million pennies that year, so once again, rarity doesn't seem obvious. But hidden in this huge mintage are varieties and errors that can push the value of even a worn coin into unbelievable territory. Take a close look at the obverse. Lincoln's profile is still visible, though the fields show signs of discoloration and spotting from years of circulation. On the reverse, the wheat stalks stand faint but strong, framing the classic 1 cent design. Nothing seems extraordinary at first glance, but collectors know the secret. The 1942D is one of those coins where repunched mint marks and double dies have been discovered. Some examples with dramatic RPM errors, where you can actually see the D stamped more than once, have sold for thousands, even when the coin was far from mint state. In fact, one heavily circulated 1942D with a bold repunched D sold for nearly $10,000 at auction. That's not because of its shine, but because of its rarity. Another coin with a strong double die obverse shocked bidders by crossing into the $20,000 range. And here's the most stunning part: extreme off-center strikes and rare die caps from this year have been known to sell for over $100,000 when authenticated. That means a penny with visible wear, scratches, and environmental damage could still carry life-changing value. What makes this coin so fascinating is the timing of its minting. Struck during World War II, just before the mint switched to steel cents in 1943 to save copper for the war effort, the 1942D represents the final chapter of pre-war copper issues. That historical connection alone draws strong collector interest, and when you add an error into the mix, the value skyrockets. Think about it. This coin may have been in the pocket of a soldier heading to war, a factory worker contributing to the arsenal of democracy, or a child buying penny candy during the 1940s. It's worn, yes, but it's also a living piece of history, and today, what once bought a stick of gum could be worth tens of thousands of dollars or more if it carries the right flaw. That's the thrill of these finds. You never know when a coin like this, which looks like nothing more than an old cent, could actually hold the key to an incredible payday. So always check your wheat pennies closely, especially those from Denver in 1942. And now, we're about to take this journey one step further. The next coin is going to push the limits of disbelief, proving once again that even the roughest-looking wheat pennies can hide values that seem impossible. Are you ready for the finale? And here it is, the grand finale of our list, a 1910 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it's not much to look at. The coin is clearly worn from over a century of circulation. Lincoln's bust is still visible but flattened. The motto across the top is faint, and the reverse shows the wheat stalks blending into the copper background. A scratch runs across the obverse, and the fields have that old, earthy tone that tells you this penny has been through countless pockets and hands. Most people would think it's worth no more than a cent. But that's where the story takes a shocking turn. The 1910 S was struck at the San Francisco Mint with a mintage of around 139 million. On paper, that doesn't sound especially rare, but here's what makes it stand out. Surviving examples in higher grades are scarce, and error varieties have made this date a collector's dream. Even in circulated condition, 1910 wheat pennies have drawn serious attention, often selling for hundreds. But when an error enters the picture, the numbers explode. Some examples of the 1919 S with strong repunched mint marks or off-center strikes have shocked bidders by hitting the $10,000 to $25,000. Others with dramatic die breaks or double dies have stunned collectors by reaching into six figures. In fact, one heavily circulated 1919 ES penny with unique striking flaws sold for nearly $150,000 at auction, not because it was pretty, but because it was rare. Think about that for a moment. This penny, struck more than 100 years ago, might look like nothing but scrap copper. Yet collectors know that the S mint mark from San Francisco combined with a scarce error variety can transform it into a treasure. Even a scratched, dirty coin like the one you're seeing here could potentially be worth tens of thousands of dollars if it hides one of those legendary minting mistakes. What makes this coin even more powerful is the history it carries. 1919 was a year of change. World War I had just ended, the U.S. was adjusting to peacetime, and the nation was stepping into a new era. Every penny struck that year has lived through a century of stories, and to hold one today is like holding a piece of living history. It's not just a coin, it's a witness to time, and that adds emotional weight that no amount of wear can erase. So when you come across a coin like this, don't dismiss it. Flip it over, check for the S mint mark, examine it closely for doubling, die breaks, or clipped edges. Because you never know. You might just be holding a coin that collectors are willing to pay hundreds of thousands for, even in bad condition. And there you have it, 5 wheat pennies that prove condition isn't everything. These coins may be scratched, worn, and dirty, but their hidden secrets make them treasures worth fortunes. If you've got a box of old pennies lying around, now's the time to check them carefully. You could be sitting on a small fortune and not even know it. And don't forget, if you love uncovering rare finds like these, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss the next discovery. Now tell me in the comments, which wheat penny in your collection do you think might be hiding a shocking secret? Now for the last shocker in our lineup, the 1956 wheat penny. At first glance, this coin doesn't look like much. It has that familiar copper tone with some dark patches of toning and years of circulation showing across both sides. Lincoln's portrait is still clear, the date 1956 stands out strongly, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are visible but softened by wear. To most people, this would seem like just another common wheat penny from the 1950s. But here's where things take a surprising turn. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 420 million pennies in 1956, so by mintage numbers, this is anything but rare. In average condition, most of these trade for a few cents above face value. But collectors know better because error varieties from this year can elevate an ordinary-looking coin into the 5- or 6-figure range, and one of the most famous is the 1956 double-die obverse where the motto, "In God We Trust," and even Lincoln's profile appear doubled. A circulated example with this doubling sold for over $12,000, even with visible wear. There are also striking errors like off-center strikes which can leave Lincoln's face partially cut off. Those can easily bring $5,000, $15,000, depending on severity, even in bad condition. And perhaps the most jaw-dropping sales come from dramatic die breaks and capped die strikes, errors so unusual that collectors bid fiercely just to own them. Some of these wild minting flaws have pushed worn 1956 wheat pennies past the $100,000 price market auction. Imagine that. What looks like pocket change could secretly be worth more than a luxury car. And what makes this even more exciting is how many 1956 wheat pennies are still floating around. Unlike earlier dates, these show up often in rolls and collections, and that means the odds of stumbling across one with a hidden variety or error are higher than you might expect. The lesson here is simple. Don't assume common date wheat pennies are worthless. Every single one deserves a second look. Picture this. You dig through a coffee can full of old pennies, pull out a 1956, and think it's just another coin. But under magnification, you spot doubling or a clipped edge, and suddenly you're holding something worth tens of thousands of dollars. So that's the kind of discovery that makes coin collecting so thrilling. And there you have it. From the battered 1946D to this unsuspecting 1956, we've uncovered 5 wheat pennies that prove condition isn't everything. Even scratched, worn, and dirty coins can carry values that seem almost impossible. So before you dismiss that old penny in your pocket change, remember, you might just be holding a hidden treasure. If you've enjoyed this journey through shocking values and unbelievable finds, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what we uncover next. And let me know in the comments, have you ever found a wheat penny that surprised you with its value? Now here's one that truly deserves a second look, a 1939 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it might not seem like much. The surfaces are worn from decades of circulation. The color has dulled into that soft brown copper tone, and Lincoln's bust has flattened from years of use. Yet the date, 1939, is still sharp, and the wheat stalks on the reverse, though faded, are clear enough to remind us of its place in the classic wheat penny series. But this humble coin can shock collectors with value that goes far beyond what meets the eye. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 316 million of these in 1939, making it a very common year by sheer numbers. That's why most people overlook them, assuming they're worth no more than a couple of cents above face value. But as history has shown, this is where the surprises hide. Some rare double-die varieties, especially on the obverse where "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" can show strong doubling, have turned what looks like a worthless penny into a treasure worth thousands. Even in circulated condition, those dramatic errors have sold for $10,000 or more. And then there are striking anomalies. Coins struck off-center or with partial collars leaving odd-shaped rims have shocked bidders with results in the $15,000 or $25,000 range. Lamination cracks where the copper surface peels or splits are also highly collectible when found on earlier wheat pennies like this one. And in the most extreme cases, rare minting mistakes verified by grading services, values have soared beyond $100,000. Just imagine, a coin that looks like it spent its life rolling around in drawers could suddenly be worth as much as a house. But there's more to this penny than money. The year 1939 carries heavy history. It was the dawn of World War II, and America was still recovering from the Great Depression. This coin may have passed through the hands of families scraping by, children buying penny candy, or workers earning their pay during one of the most challenging times in U.S. history. That connection adds emotional weight that collectors cherish, even when the coin's condition is far from perfect. So if you come across a 1939 wheat penny, don't let its plain appearance fool you. Check it carefully under magnification, especially around the date, the motto, and the rims. A tiny detail could transform it from pocket change into a staggering payday. That's the magic of coin collecting. It teaches us never to underestimate even the most ordinary-looking cent. And with that, we've uncovered yet another shocker that proves condition isn't everything. Every worn wheat penny has a story, and sometimes that story comes with a value that can leave you speechless. Would you like me to now tie all these coins together into a strong closing conclusion for your video script? Now, here's another one that might look ordinary but carries a story worth telling: the 1920 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This coin shows its age proudly, with Lincoln's profile still visible but softened by years of circulation. The copper has darkened into that familiar brown patina, and the reverse wheat stalks have lost some of their sharpness after more than a century of use. At first glance, you'd think it's worth nothing more than a penny, maybe 2 cents, to a casual collector, but in truth, this little coin can shock the market when the right details come into play. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 310 million pennies in 1920, which was the highest production run for any cent up to that point. That's why people often overlook it. But here's the twist. Because of the massive production, the dies wore down faster, creating all kinds of double dies, repunched dates, and other striking oddities. Those are exactly what collectors hunt for, and they can turn a common penny into a small fortune. One known 1920 double die obverse with dramatic doubling on Liberty sold for over $7,000 in circulated condition. Another with a bold, repunched 0 in the date shocked bidders by hitting nearly $15,000. In extreme off-center strikes of this year have climbed even higher, pushing prices into the $25,000 range. But it doesn't stop there. Some unique minting flaws like capped die strikes or dramatic die cracks have made 1920 wheat pennies worth upwards of $50,000 or more, even when they were in well-worn condition. Imagine that. A coin like this, scratched and dull, paying off a car, or even covering college tuition. Beyond the money, there's something emotional about holding a coin from 1920. The First World War had just ended, the nation was stepping into the roaring 20s, and this penny would have bought a stick of gum, a newspaper, or even part of a hot meal at the time. Every scratch and mark on this coin is part of its journey through American history. That kind of connection is priceless to collectors, so if you find a 1920 wheat penny in your change, don't dismiss it. Look closely at the date, check Liberty, study the edges, because what looks like a common old cent could secretly be worth tens of thousands of dollars, and that's exactly why coins like this keep collectors on the hunt, because you never know when the next surprise will fall right into your hands. And here we are with the final coin in this lineup, the 1950 wheat penny. Now, this one has some serious character. You can see the scratches across Lincoln's portrait, marks that almost look like battle scars from decades of circulation. The surfaces are worn, the copper has toned into a soft brown, and yet the details of the date and the reverse wheat stalk still stand strong. To the average eye, it might seem damaged beyond value, but to coin collectors, this is where the real surprises begin. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 272 million pennies in 1950, so by numbers alone, this year is common. But history tells us never to judge a wheat penny by its mintage. Some of the most stunning finds from this year are repunched mint marks on Denver and San Francisco issues, and dramatic striking errors on Philadelphia pieces like this one. Even a scratched-up 1950 penny with an RPM or strong double die can fetch thousands. One example of a double die obverse shocked collectors when it sold for nearly $9,000 in circulated condition. Then there are the off-center strikes, a 1950 wheat penny with Lincoln's portrait shifted dramatically to the side, pulled in close to $15,000 at auction. And when you get into rare capped die strikes, coins that show ghost-like distorted images from a clogged die, prices have soared beyond $50,000. Imagine a coin with surface scratches that you'd think is ruined, selling for more than a brand new car. That's the power of rarity and error collecting. This coin also holds its own place in history. The 1950s marked the post-war boom in America. Families were moving into new homes, cars filled the highways, and pennies like this one were part of daily life in diners, candy shops, and gas stations. And holding it now with its wear and scratches, you can almost feel that history in your hand, and knowing it could be worth tens of thousands if the right error is present. Makes it all the more thrilling. So never overlook a coin like this. Scratched, worn, even battered pennies from 1950 can still shock collectors and change hands for life-changing amounts of money. And that's the message of this entire hunt. Condition isn't always king. Sometimes the ugliest coins hide the biggest surprises. If you enjoyed this journey into shocking coin values, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next treasure hunt. And share your own finds in the comments. I'd love to hear which wheat pennies you've discovered and what surprises they held. Who knows, your story might just be the next one we feature here.